Bless, bless, bless. It's the Myri Jane podcast. Today, we're going to give you a little bit of news and talk about some things. The cannabis culture, right? Right now, I just looked up another company from Michigan, the Michigan state, basically right next to Detroit, right? Called Loom. The biggest single state cannabis operator basically in America, right? They haven't been around too long, but Loom is the biggest single state cannabis operator in America from Michigan. Once again, there's a connection there, like I was talking about yesterday, about the other company called Gage, which is in Detroit, Michigan, another cannabis company that knows all the regulations and all the laws and everything. This is another big company, Loom. I think they grossed a profit within a month over 135 million, something around that number, right? Big business going on in the state of Michigan. Hope you could hear me, people. Let's see what's going on. Yup, we're going to talk about black people, African people, in the culture, the cannabis culture. We know that before the legalization, a lot of the times it's the people in poverty, which is focused and stereotypically linked to marijuana, the cannabis plant, the inner cities all over the world, right? Especially in the black community, it's always been something, linked. Before they used to call marijuana a drug, right? And there's been a lot of, sad to say, problems involved in that issue, right? Drugs in the black community and violence in the black community in the Americas. Yeah, so we're going to talk about how hard it was to just be a person, right? Stereotypically with the plant before it was legalized. Like, for example, my parents are from Jamaica. I got that background. There's always been a stereotype with Jamaicans and weed, cannabis, marijuana, that Jamaicans all smoke weed, right? That's all we do. So, anytime someone says Jamaica, you're going to think of marijuana. Bob Marley, maybe Peter Tosh, and a lot of things. So, that makes it even more harder for black entrepreneurs, businessmen, women to probably even come in the industry because you already had a hard time before with the cannabis plant. This being Black History Month, I'm just putting down some gems for you all. But majority of the cannabis industry is not controlled by us, right? Or even, I don't even think in any percentage, it's always a small percentage. So I could imagine the percentage of black dispensaries that are available out there are people who are like black who own dispensaries in America or wherever it's legalized, right? And the population is there. I'm just saying, like all other industries, it's always a fight for black people to benefit, right, from in some way. Like the NFT. Let's see what will happen with that. Snoop Dogg is one great example, and hopefully we'll see many more. like right now, one of the biggest companies called Luma is from Detroit, right? Detroit, or it's Michigan, but it's the biggest black population. Some of the biggest, yeah, the biggest, one of the biggest black population is from Detroit. So it's interesting to find out how much black dispensaries there is since the legalization of marijuana in the state of Michigan and Detroit. Let's find out. Still new. I know it's new to people. The marijuana, to a lot of people, it's still new. People don't understand what it is, and I understand too. Yeah. So, how much do we benefit, or my people benefit, of legalization now? I know they make it already hard for people to get licensed, and with all these laws, regulations, it's probably really, really hard for anybody. But imagine if you're a minority, what they say call a minority, and you're trying to get in the industry. How hard is that right now? Right? And how much dispensaries are existing in a place where the population is black? How much black dispensaries exist, businesses? Probably not many, because a lot of times it's the same trend. In the black community, there's somebody else, benefiting from our, money. Like a lot of communities, they put the money right back into the community, but a lot of the times, a lot of the times, my culture, they don't put the money back in the community. It goes out of the community. And that networking way of sharing is what enriches your community, so you could build infrastructure for yourselves, be independent, right? So, how much black dispensaries are there? How much, black business owners are running cannabis businesses? I done an interview a couple weeks ago with a weed connoisseur that lives in Vegas, and she basically mentioned to me there's not really any, but there's just one, and it's owned by a lady in Las Vegas. One black dispensary owned by a lady in Las Vegas, around that way. So not that much, because first of all, they're going to look up your record. You have to have a clean record. So you can't be someone who used to be a hustler, or someone with a record that's going to be able to get a dispensary. So that's where they got a lot of the population, because the whole thing with the black people in the law system. You get what I'm saying? Like, a lot of people have gotten cases on them, innocent also, and that could affect the whole process of having a business. But yeah, that's why it's very limited and not attracted, and there's not a lot of education out there for the people to access it as much, right? Because there's not too much people representing from the community, right? Such as myself, talking about this. But yeah, this is a big business, and it can be sensitive to some people because the anger. Many people have gotten locked up for like 10 years, 20 years, almost a lifetime for marijuana, cannabis, and now all this legalization is around, So imagine how much people have been locked up for this plant. And now that it's legal, the same people who are locked up for basically maybe selling it, right? They were locked up for selling it. Now it's all right to sell it. But the people who are selling it is not the same people who they locked up for. The majority of the people who are selling the plant is not the people they locked up. It doesn't reflect, right? So a lot, for example, of black people been locked up for marijuana. Let's be straight up. In the ghetto, the hood. A lot of the times it was just a roach, not that much, maybe a blunt. And people have served lifetime sentences almost over marijuana. Now it's legalized, right? So black people, how should black people feel really, and how do they feel about the legalization of marijuana? For real. A lot of people might think black people are happy, celebrating all over the streets. But there's a lot of my people that are angry because their brothers, their sisters, their mothers, their fathers, aunts, cousins, whatever, best friends, been locked up over this plant for years and years. Don't forget this. This is the story people don't want to talk about. This is the story they don't want to celebrate. They're not celebrating this story. Everybody's celebrating the legalization of marijuana. Yes, you get to smoke it. The law is more soft, right? You could relax. But remember, every time, especially if you're black and you burn that spliff out in public, remember how much people, of your own people, got locked up for it, right? So it's like it's like back in the 60s fighting for your rights. So they say they gave you the right now to legally smoke certain places and purchase. They give you the right. You got to pay a tax for it now, right? Most of the people who they used to target, the majority of the people, was stereotypically black people, or people who looked like they weren't fitting in quote unquote society. So if you're like a hippie, right? That's why they stereotype even anybody with dreadlocks, rasta, ganja, weed, right? That's what's linked. A lot of people used to even wear the crown and don't care about the crown. It was just camouflage, so they could get either business or basically get business or make people trust them. They even use that to sell the weed. As funny as it is, right? Jamaicans been stereotyped, like I mentioned earlier, big time for marijuana. In Jamaica, people got locked up for even just a spliff or even a roach, served years for it. And now it's not funny, but it's crazy how now you could just go anywhere and burn a nice big spliff or a blunt in public and don't have to worry about the police taking you in, using that to make your record even more. That is what's been going on in the black community for years, all over the world, right? So, when we have these big corporations now, it's funny, some of the biggest corporations are in Detroit, or Michigan, the state where has one of the biggest black populations. And so far, I don't see it reflecting the population. And Detroit's been through a lot of stuff with the water, the dirty water. The city's been through a lot of problems with drugs and crime for years and years and years. If you notice, the cities that were legalized first are cities that have big drug problems or social issues, right? If you really look on the ones what were first legalized, just check that out. But for example, Detroit, it's legal, but I don't know how loose their laws are. but it's legal. Obviously, the industries there is closest to Canada, so I'm guessing that's one reason from the influence from us up in Canada, because Detroit is not too far from Canada. Um, and we grow a lot now. We're all legal. So you have this big company called Loom Cannabis that distributes a lot through America and is located in Michigan, right? Basically near Detroit. Has a big industrial plant in an industrial area. So they're really big. In the last year or so, they sold over 135 million. That was what, something like that in their their gross, whatever they've been doing. So we have two companies like this other company I mentioned, Gage Cannabis. This is the next one. Their influence is more in Canada, so you see how they do it. These two American companies break off. One stays more domestic, one is more international. That's cannabis news. But yeah, talking about black people, right? Because it's Black History Month. The benefits of marijuana that we could have if people respect us. But so far, it's still new. Legalization is new in a lot of places in America, a lot of places in Canada. Bless up, Frank Line. Anybody who has knowledge about marijuana, the cannabis, I welcome on this platform. I'm talking about basically the influence of black culture on marijuana, and I'm talking about the industries that are going on for marijuana. But yeah, I'm gonna be having many sessions about this because this is important to educate the people. I'm gonna give you facts. I'm not gonna make up anything. I'm gonna give you real companies, what they're doing, and yeah, we need this. We need this like the news, because yeah, we have people doing it, but the more, the better, right? Right now it's legal in Canada. We got a couple dispensaries popping up everywhere. We just got cookies in Toronto, and yeah, that's what's going on. Cannabis news.